I wanted to talk with you in some greater detail about your memories of the West End.
Yeah.
Because you're one of the very few people left who has any at this point. And I wondered if you could tell me, do you remember the street that you grew up on?
Yeah, it was Chambers Street, 87 Chambers Street exactly, which was directly across the street from the Peter Faneuil School. So in the first 3 grades of school, I walked across the street and walked into the schoolhouse. My brother did the same thing 4 or 4.5 years ahead of me.
What did the street look like?
It was 3 and 4 story brick buildings attached, walk-up buildings. There was one building, 5 or 6 buildings away from us, that had an elevator, and it was known as the building with the elevator. And diagonally across from us was the St. Joseph's Church, and our building was between Allen Street and Poplar Street, both of which ran down to the Charles River, to Charles Street.
And it was described during the urban renewal period when it was raised as a slum. Do you remember it as a slum?
No, not really. There were some areas of it that were tired, but I would never call it a slum. And I think that description was useful to people who wanted to tear it down and develop the area, but I don't think it was fair or accurate.
You were of Jewish parents. You were raised Jewish. Was it all Jewish around you where you lived immediately in your area of the neighborhood?
It was very mixed, very mixed. We had neighbors downstairs of us who were Italian. Below them, there was an Irish family. And families next door and adjacent to each other were very mixed, Italians and Jews in the same building.
Was there any tension?
Not that I was aware of, not in my immediate vicinity. There may have been in other areas, in other pockets, but in my immediate area there really was not, in spite of the fact that we were in a very Catholic environment, and the St. Joseph's Church was diagonally across the street from us, maybe 30 yards away. But and on the other hand, we were 2 doors away from an Orthodox synagogue. So we were really cheek and jowl to each other and had to get along, and we did.
I read that your father was a barber in Mattapan?
He was a barber in the West End.
Oh, in the West End?
Until it was torn down. And then he moved out to Dorchester, Mattapan, and had a shop on Blue Hill Avenue near Morton Street. But for many years, it was on Leverett Street in the West End.
So your parents continued to live there up until the point where it was torn down?
Until it was torn down, yeah, they refused to leave until they had to vacate the building. It was being torn down around them, which I think was in the mid-50s.
What was that like for them?
It was very disrupting. They were very careful, low-profile people, very quiet people. Had come from a tough life in Russia, where they had been subjected to oppression, and for them, living a quiet, peaceful life was very important. Any disruption was frightening. Any major change was frightening. And they knew they were safe and peaceful in the West End, so they wanted to stay there as long as they could.
The legacy of the urban renewal era is, I think it's safe to say, mixed at best, at least in this city. I wonder, do you see any benefit in when you look at the neighborhood now, or do you look back at that with regret?
I have to be. I'm limited to my emotional connection. I wish I could go back to my roots. I can't. They're gone. The buildings are all torn down. I try walking with my wife to show her where I lived, and it's so difficult because the street configuration has changed so much that I feel it's gone. I feel my roots are gone. I'm still emotionally connected to what it was when I was living there and when I left Boston, which was 1949. I was 18 years old and left the West End. I came back a couple times to visit periodically, and maybe a handful of times, but I remember vividly the streets, the people, the activities, and the greater Boston experience. I remember being able to walk to the Charles River and walk to the Peabody Playhouse where I started acting, walk to Scollay Square and get a Joe and Nemo's hot dog for a nickel or 8 cents, whatever it was at the time.
Another place that's gone.
Yeah, that's right. Walk downtown. I used to work for a cousin who had a greeting card shop on Bromfield Street. I used to work for him in the afternoons after school, and then walk home from there through the Boston Common, up through the State House, down into the West End. or over Joy Street into the West End. Those are the things that I remember. I don't even have a good picture of what it's like within the geographically. The area now is so different. It's just, to me, is so difficult to relate to it.
Well, I want to thank you very much for sharing those memories with me.
You're welcome.
Congratulations on your honorary doctorate from Boston University.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to seeing you in new episodes of Fringe, I imagine.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
Thank you.